discretion advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
In the summer of 2012, Morgantown, West Virginia was the home to 3 teenage girls, each one of them from their own separate journeys through life. First in the group was 16-year-old Skylar Neese, a girl who only a few years before that summer had broken down into tears when she'd accidentally caused the death of a few ladybugs. That kindness and love for life is what everyone knew Skylar for, especially those who were closest to her. Her father, Dave Neese, remembered a time when Skylar had called him out for commenting on someone's physical appearance. "Well, how many beauty contests have you won lately, Daddy?" she asked, and Dave humbly took his lesson. Her mother, Mary, would often hear Skylar on the phone, talking and treating her best friends like they were her sisters. And Skylar didn't just treat her friends like this because she was that kind. She was also an only child. So for Skylar, her best friend Sheila Eddy really was kind of her sister. Skylar and Sheila had known each other since they were 8 years old. Sheila was loud, larger than life, and not afraid to show it. Sheila always made herself right at home wherever she went. Dave and Mary Neese remember that Sheila wouldn't even knock when she came over. She'd just walk right into the house, and everyone was happy to see her. Fun was everything to Sheila, and people couldn't help but have fun around her too. And it was this zest for life and passion for fun that drew someone to Sheila like a moth to a flame. Rachel Schoaf shared that same love for life that Sheila did, just maybe a little more quietly. And it was the first year of University High School when Sheila and Rachel crossed paths and sealed the trio's fate. Rachel was well-liked and got along with others in school. She was an active part of the school's theater club and helped put on a lot of plays. But by 2012, she was also a teenager. Teenage life hit Rachel a little differently than it did to Sheila and Skylar. She'd grown up in a strict, practicing Catholic household, and her parents were on the tail end of a divorce. Throw in the angst, peer pressure, and all of the other joys of growing older, and Rachel had gone a bit quiet and shy. Rachel and Sheila first bonded over their shared experiences of having divorced parents, and the next thing anyone knew, Rachel had introduced Sheila to Skylar, and the trio was complete. Rachel was the shy, creative one, Sheila the one with the big personality, and Skylar the kind one who was always there for emotional support. But soon after, relatives noticed an even bigger shift in Rachel's demeanor. She still kept good grades at school, but she started sneaking off. She'd skip classes and disappear to smoke a little green stuff. Some might say that's nothing more than normal teenage behavior, but things took a turn when a rift formed between the girls, leaving Skylar unofficially kicked out. Skylar's posts online from that spring showed how deeply she'd been hurt. Quote, "Too bad my friends are having lives without me," she wrote. And another post that ended with a string of obscenities that I'm not going to say here, but you can go to 10minutemurder.com and read about it. Classmates noticed the constant bickering and fights that continued even when school was out for the summer. Hurt, but focused on what she wanted to make out of the life ahead of her, Skylar got a summer job working at a local Wendy's while she looked into what it would take for her to become a criminal defense lawyer. But then she got an unexpected phone call. Rachel and Sheila were sorry for how things had gone down between them all, and they wanted to make it up. Skylar was hesitant. There'd simply been too many arguments and things said for everything to be this easy. But Rachel and Sheila pushed, and Skylar had missed her friends. Around midnight, on July 6th, 2012, Skylar propped open the window to her bedroom and snuck out to meet her former best friends. Security footage from her apartment building showed her getting into a car and leaving, presumably for a night of fun. Skylar had done this before, and she'd done it with Rachel and Sheila. The three of them would sneak out and drive around at night, sometimes ending up in a neighboring town where they would spend a few hours smoking. But what Skylar had never done before was stay out the whole night. Unaware that Skylar had even left, Dave and Mary went into her room the following morning to check on her. They'd gotten a call from the Wendy's where Skylar worked, telling them that she was late, and for all Dave and Mary knew, Skylar had simply slept in. But they found Skylar's room empty, her window still propped open like she was about to come back in at any moment. Right away, her parents knew that something was wrong, but they were also certain that Skylar hadn't just run away. Her phone charger, toothbrush, and other toiletries were still in her room, meaning that wherever Skylar had gone, she had not planned on being out for very long. Dave and Mary called the police to report their daughter as missing, and Skylar's family and friends began canvassing the area, putting up posters and raising awareness that the 16-year-old Skylar was missing. And it worked. That very same day, Sheila Eddy caught wind that her best friend Skylar had not returned home the night before, and she called Dave and Mary to tell them everything she knew. It was true. Skylar had snuck out with Sheila and Rachel the night before, but they dropped Skylar back off at home around midnight. But there was one big twist to the story. Skylar asked Sheila not to take her all the way back to where they'd picked her up, and where the car had been spotted by the security camera. Instead, Skylar asked to be dropped off further down the road so that the sound of the car would not wake her parents up. Sheila had listened, and as far as the two other girls had known, Skylar made it home safe and sound. It wasn't much to go off on, but at least it was a start and an explanation for why Skylar had snuck out the night before, and at least it added one more person to the search party. The following day, Rachel was on her way to Catholic summer camp, but Sheila was still around and she desperately wanted to be there for Skylar's family and to join in to the search for her best friend. She spent all of July 7th helping Mary work her way through the neighborhood. The search party came back empty-handed, but it did lead to something. Investigator Jessica Colbank, who would go on to be the Star City's first female chief of police, grew suspicious. Sheila is acting wrong. Rachel is scared to death, she noted, and perhaps she was onto something. Rachel became even more shy and withdrawn. She started violently acting out towards her family, and it got to the point where Sheila was the only one who could get through to her. Sheila herself seemed intent on being the emotional support for Skylar's parents. She kept in their lives and made constant posts about missing her best friend and looking for reassurance until November 2012, when Sheila wrote something that set investigators on edge. "No one on this earth can handle me and Rachel. If you think you can, you're wrong." The beginnings of a confession, perhaps, or a reaction to something else. Classmates had previously overheard Rachel and Sheila openly discussing plans to murder Skylar in the classroom. At that time, no one had actually believed they'd actually do it, especially when it came across as just the two of them blowing off steam after the fight happened between the three of them. But when Skylar went missing and the last two people to see her alive actually turned out to be the very two girls who'd openly discussed killing her, well, that was a little too on the nose for people to ignore. In December of 2012, Rachel's mother made a desperate 911 call. "I have an issue with a 16-year-old daughter of mine," she told officers. "I can't control her anymore. She's hitting us. She's screaming. She's running through the neighborhood. My husband's trying to contain her. Please hurry." In the background of the call, Rachel can be heard crying and shouting, "Give me the phone. No, this is over. This is over." That night, Rachel suffered a mental breakdown and had attacked her mother with a lit candelabra before barricading herself inside her room, screaming that she wanted to take her own life. Once in police custody, Rachel crumbled even further. She admitted that there had been a plot to kill Skylar for at least a month before Rachel and Sheila had even acted on it, and the only reason they'd met up with Skylar that night was so that they could finally get rid of her. They attacked Skylar in a secluded forest, with Rachel giving up the chase after Skylar had managed to break free and injure Rachel. Sheila had then continued on her own, stabbing and slashing Skylar until she finally had gone quiet. In one of her dying breaths, Skylar managed to ask her two friends why they were doing this to her, but it's unlikely that she got an answer that made any sense. Rachel and Sheila's motive is still a mystery, but some people who knew them claim to know what made them snap. Skylar herself had made a diary entry that seems to back up the theory, and it all stems from a secret relationship. Rachel and Sheila were allegedly together in every sense of the term. One time after drinking in Rachel's room, the two of them had even begun sleeping together while Skylar was still in the room with them. There were rumors of a recording that Skylar had made and allegedly could have been used to blackmail them into spending more time with her. At her parole hearing in 2023, Rachel finally gave a motive for killing her best friend. Quote, "After things became known with the relationship, there was a tension between us. It was hostile and violent. In our teenage minds, we didn't know how to handle the conflict, and we just wanted it to stop." Growing up in a strict and religious Catholic household could possibly have added to the fear that Rachel claims to have felt about the news of her relationship breaking. But could it really be motive enough to brutally stab someone to death? Sheila herself has never confirmed the relationship or given an explanation for why she acted the way she did during the months that followed the murder. She showed no remorse for ingratiating herself with the victim's family, even after Dave Neese went to the police station and defended Sheila to the investigators, a move he would later deeply regret once Sheila and Rachel both confessed to murdering his daughter. That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. My name is Joe, I'm the host, and thank you so much for listening to my podcast. If you're new to 10-Minute Murder, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you are listening right now, and know that if you're listening on YouTube, there are so many more episodes available if you listen on a podcast listening app. Connect with me on social media, see the pictures of what we talk about here on the podcast, and if you like this episode, leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, Audible, any place that you can do that, please do that. Go to 10minutemurder.com for all things related to the podcast. And coming up on the next episode of 10-Minute Murder, it's a story about an up-and-coming pro cyclist. The killer was the girlfriend of a guy that she had a thing with. But the interesting part of the story is that she evaded arrest, ran away to Costa Rica, got plastic surgery, but how she ended up getting caught, you're not going to believe. That's in the next episode of 10-Minute Murder. Thank you so much for listening to another 10-Minute Murder podcast episode. I will see you on the next one.